Welcome in, everyone. We are going through my fourth and final game in my first ever classical over the board tournament. And here I was playing against the other undefeated opponent. We were both 3-0. If you want to see my previous games, go check out those videos down in the description below. But here, I was a little nervous. If I win, I get prize money. If I lose, I wasn't sure I was going to get prize money or not. And let's see what happened. We have E4 and C5. We have the Sicilian. And here I am playing C3. Why? Because it's basically my way of saying that I refuse to actually play against the Sicilian. I will force you into a, avenue of openings that I'm more familiar with the Alapin, instead of playing like a traditional Sicilian line, which there are a million different theoretical lines. So I was like, let me stay away from all that with a 10-foot pole and just learn this set of openings just within let me just learn this set of lines within the Alapin. After knight f6, you push, and okay, d4. They don't even take, because a lot of times, like what I've seen a lot of times, is takes here, and then I play this crazy thing, bishop c4, basically gambiting a pawn, and I'm arguing that I have faster development, and I'm going to play really actively. Fun fact, I played that line against Keaton Kira. Not that exact. I don't think he took on c3. Maybe he did, but either way, I had a brilliant move against him in that line. He's an international master. And then I fumbled the bag and completely lost. But I did have a winning position out of that opening. Anyway, so this is not what happened. Instead, that's what I wish happened. Instead, he played d6, I took, and I played knight f3. We get this instance where I got way too much tunnel vision. And you might be like, KD, it's literally move 7. What do you mean you had tunnel vision? Well, let me tell you. I had the idea that bishop c4 was setting up an interesting idea. First off, the knight is under attack. But two, if this knight moves, let's just say it moves backwards, bishop takes f7 was my plan. To go, okay, check, wherever you go. Oh, this was going to be hanging. But, in this calculation, I think I put the knight somewhere other than f6. So I might have put the knight here and then thought that this worked. But guess what? This still doesn't even work because oh, wait, sorry. This still doesn't work because because queen takes. And when you take here, I just take your queen. Like, I thought that I was having a big brain moment and I was going to blow the opponent off the board in the first 10 moves. But instead, all of that was just wrong. And in a way, I'm lucky that my opponent didn't move backwards because I would have just completely blundered. And yeah, so they actually hit me with a better move. More troublesome move. Queen e7 check. And I was like, ooh, this is bad. Because if I go this way, I play this, they take, and I'm like, oops, I got a really bad pawn structure. And if I go like this, which I think I did, they can take here because it's pinned. And then, after all this, I still have a bad pawn structure. And this is what actually happened in the game. But something that I did not consider, chat, what's the top engine move here? King f1. Like, are you kidding me? I didn't even consider this. But apparently it's just like, okay, so what? You got the pin, but I'll kick you out. But long story short, as Fiog is saying in the chat, bishop e2, white's totally fine. White's totally happy, and we're good to go. But I didn't do this. So I have to go through the pain of playing this takes, and g takes f3. And now, yeah, it says it's minus 0.7, but it's already quite unpleasant for me to play because after c takes d4, I'm down a pawn, and it's my turn. In the last game, I was up a pass pawn, and I was the one that was just chilling, making progress and having my opponent prove how they're going to make a comeback. Here, I'm the one that has to create complications. So I don't even take the pawn back yet. I just gambit another pawn. Well, I guess, whatever. I don't take the pawn back. I just play bishop f4. Basically hitting this. Knight moves out of the way. A discovery to protect that pawn. And also to attack my bishop. So I don't even take back yet. I'm like, look, like I said, I need to go crazy here. Maybe not the best idea, but I was like, I need to be creative and complicated. So I was trying to go for bishop d5, and the idea is that if you take, then boom, I should be winning a rook and quite happy, even if I am down pawns and whatever other stuff. So instead, my opponent just moves out of the way. They're like, oh yeah, like I see what you're doing, and it's not gonna work. So now I save my bishop. They start pushing. I'm like, I'm not gonna get my bishop trapped. They take the extra pawn, and yeah, now they held on to it, right? I jump in with knight b5. Apparently, I'm better if I just long castle. Apparently, the engine's like, you're totally fine. You've fixed all your problems. I was like, let's get insane. Knight b5, obviously going for a fork. Again, small fork. This does not allow the big fork. And I thought that after this, I was fine, because I was going to trade off and win the pawn back and then long castle. And I was like, I think I'm okay. But the issue with this, not great. Because this knight gets active and creates a lot of pressure. So after this, I move my bishop back to save it. And I was considering even like crazy stuff like takes on b7, but I just thought rook b8 I'm helping black by taking, right? So I figured I'd just move it back, and then I move my king. Now I take. I get checked. And yeah, this is chat. I didn't know what to do here, but definitely I think king c2 was not ideal. It would have been better if I'd gone ahead and taken right now. And this is actually supposedly supposed to be fine, because I'll just play rook king b1 instead of trying to walk forward. But my idea was to try and like walk forward and long term just like somehow trade everything off and like waltz forward. Because if you look at this, I have pressure on the b7 pawn, and if I get a 2-on-1, I was hoping that I could just trade everything off and have a 2-on-1 and just like bulldoze forward. But my opponent is a little bit more resourceful, and I tried to go and start ahead and go forward, but this is not a good plan, because I dropped the h-pawn, and all of a sudden things are getting a little bit dangerous, because there is a straight up passed pawn on the outside file, and the only thing that's going to get there is the rook or bishop, and the bishop is no more. Last chance. How do I fight the hardest? I try to take the knight, get checked, and start waltzing forward. The issue with this is that black is faster, but my opponent actually took a lot of time. Similar to my opponent in round 3, they were using so much time, which is hilarious, because I was the one that felt like I had a worse position, but I think they were just seeing the complications. They were trying to be really, really careful. But I, didn't have much of a plan. I just started going forward. Take, and now I have to go back. And I was hoping I could just sack at some point. But this is just completely losing. And here they played this. They moved away. But honestly, at any of these times, they could have sacked the rook for the pawn much earlier, because a rook versus 3 connected passed pawns is definitely losing for white. But anyway, they did it this way, and I just tried to check. I played on because my opponent had like less than a minute on the clock, but they checkmated me with like 40 seconds on the clock. I don't really know what the takeaway is on this one, except that just because you have a pet idea in the opening does not mean that you have to ignore everything and get tunnel vision, because even if my opponent had gone back, bishop takes f7 doesn't work. So if you have a pet idea, just because it worked in a game that you had in the past doesn't mean that it's going to work in the game that you're playing in the moment. That idea actually came from a lesson that I had with Dina Belankaya. Obviously, I got a little bit too eager to play something that would be from a previous lesson. Another takeaway, as Fiog is saying, is to respect opponent's threats, because I didn't even consider queen e7. Like, whenever you're going through candidate moves, you have to think, okay, what changed in the position? What are my opponent's threats and plans? And then what are my threats and plans? And then what are the candidate moves? Calculate and decide. I just didn't even like think about queen e7. And that's why I had a huge brain fart and realized at this point that I was shocked and in some major trouble. Long story short, my first tournament ever. It was a lot mentally to handle, but ton of fun. Learned a lot of lessons. Hope you enjoyed. Happy learning, everyone.